Okay, so summer is officially over now. It's fall. It's when I'm recording this, it's the first week of October. So I've started to think about what I'm gonna do for next year's garden. I have a lot of ideas. If you saw my video back in the spring where I mentioned growing plants for natural food dyes, that idea is still in my head. So I'm going to show you where I got that idea. This is my Baker Creek catalog that I've been looking at all season long. A lot of stuff I've been wanting to buy. And I'll show you more than just food dye ideas that I have. Okay, so originally there was this, the butterfly pea plant. That's the one I mentioned in one of my videos back in the spring. Let's see what it says. Gorgeous, huge, double blue blooms make a natural food dye and soothing tea to calm the nerves. Found in Thailand, where the blooms are used to dye everything from teas to rice to desserts. And it has a picture of some blue rice, which is not what I would do with it, but that's a very creative way to showcase its dyeing abilities. So what I'm thinking mainly that I want food dye plants for is making candies and desserts for my kids. I don't like a lot of store-bought options, which is not to say that they'll never have any of that in their lifetime. I just want to avoid it as much as we can, especially while they're young, and get them to appreciate real food and being creative with real food. And so this butterfly pea plant was my first, it was the first thing that I stumbled upon in this catalog that kind of fits the bill for that. So if it has food dye abilities, then that's pretty amazing. But then I thought, okay, let me look through this whole thing and see if there's anything else that could be used as food dye. Every year around Easter, well, for as long as I've had kids anyway, have used things like beets, carrots, coffee, tea, onion peel, blueberry, turmeric, that type of thing for my egg dyes. It's been a really fun experiment every year to see what we can do differently, and we'll repeat the next year, and what we can add the next year, and possibly butterfly pea flower petal. If I were to dehydrate it and keep it in an airtight container, maybe when it's steeped in water, maybe that could color eggs, you know, if nothing else. I think the process of dyeing food is a little bit more complicated than just juicing a plant and adding it to something. I looked into the option of freeze drying liquid and was told that it wouldn't work for things like berry juices, which are very strong. For instance, Oregon grape juice. If you saw my garden in review video, we picked Oregon grapes, and the juice is just so vibrantly pink that it seemed like a great option for dyeing stuff. To be able to save that, I'm not sure how we would be able to do that, to add it to frostings or for cake decorating, cookie decorating, you know. So maybe freeze drying isn't an option. I think maybe I could always dehydrate the skins or the leaves or the petals of something and grind that up really fine and save those and see what works. So butterfly pea, and then similarly goji berries, the black goji berry up here. It says, steep the berries into a beautiful blue tea. Adding a few drops of lemon will turn the tea to a lovely purple-pink color. The potent berries create an outstanding blue color when steeped or added to foods. So that's along the same lines as the butterfly pea. The only thing is, I'm not sure how well goji berries would thrive in my growing zone. I believe I'm either 6A or 6B. So there's that. Okay, and then safflower. So safflower, I had never heard of safflower until it started to become popular as an alternative frying cooking oil. I've heard a whole bunch of bad stuff about safflower in terms of using it as a cooking oil, but if I were to grow the flowers and use it as a food dye, because saffron, I know, saffron is kind of like turmeric from my understanding, how it dyes a really vibrant yellow. And safflower, it says here that it's like the poor man's saffron. So I would try to grow it and see what kind of color you get from the threads. It says this lovely flower is a wonderful ingredient for drinks, dyes, and rice dishes. See? Down here in the corner. This is an interesting one, this red Malabar spinach. It's not a true spinach. It has berries. It has berries. Can you believe? See, this is a true spinach right here. This is the red Malabar spinach. And it has berries. I don't know if you can see the berries on the vines. It says the flavor is fairly bland, however the color is an extraordinary purple. Super high in anthocyanin, excellent as a natural dye for fabrics and foods. Oh, and one other thing that I mentioned before, there's also beets. So like I talked about adding beet juice to my Easter eggs, it gives them a beautiful, just light, bright pink color, even though the juice is red, which is fine. There's a lot of things that will dye food a lighter shade than it looks as a juice, and that's fine. You just have to play with things and know what to expect in the future. So I'm looking for next year. I'm looking at either Bull's Blood or Ruby Queen. They're both very dark, rich colors. This year on a different note, this year we grew Chioggia. And those were fun to cut open. They tasted okay. They weren't actually my favorite beets. I guess I like the taste of the darker ones better. Now this one, Amaranth, this Hopi red dye. So that one, I guess, is traditionally used by the Hopi Nation for dyeing fabrics and their world-renowned Piki bread. So it's a good natural dye for craft projects, for food. So that, I'm sure, would be a shade of red. It's a really dark red, almost purple here. And then now I wanted to show you other things I was thinking about for next year's garden that were like giant plants. That's just something that's really cool to me. Who doesn't want to grow giant food? I just think that's such a cool thing. So there's this lettuce leaf basil right up here. It says, basil in general, I want to grow a lot more of that. My starts that I got from the store this year didn't do very well. I had some issues, but I'm going to work on it for next year. It says huge 6-inch leaves are great in size and nutrition. 6-inch leaves. So usually a basil leaf is about maybe like 2 inches. Like big ones are like 2.5 inches. This is 6 inches. 6-inch leaves. And it says it's a more subtle taste than the Genovese basil, which is a pretty standard type of basil. So probably what you've tasted in a basil is a Genovese. So just compare that, and it's more subtle than that. All kinds of cool types of basil, but the lettuce leaf, I don't know, that just, it seems so cool. And then there's this, as far as carrots go. Carrots, this, okay, this is a Japanese name. Let me take my time here. Mampukuji. This giant carrot. My only concern with growing a giant carrot is I think I would need to really work on learning how to amend the soil so that giant carrots would be able to grow where we can plant them. We have very rocky soil naturally, and we've had to do a lot of work clearing rocks in order to grow things. I'm gonna have to work on creating soil that is carrot friendly. The carrots that we have growing right now are in raised beds. I think we may have a crowding issue that's not allowing them to grow very well. But if we had them spread out more, if next year I got pelleted carrot seeds, you know, who knows? Okay. Maybe I can figure that out and we could grow giant carrots so that we would need fewer of them. I don't know. And this year we grew purple dragon carrots. That was one of Caspian's personal crops. He thought they were pretty cool. And they are pretty cool. They're purple on the outside, like a red purple on the outside and an orange on the inside. They're kind of small. I'm not sure if that's the proper length that they're supposed to turn out or if it's just how we planted them. But there are lots of options. Oh, and then this purple carrot. And there's this red carrot. We have a lot of carrot options here. Purple carrot could be a really good food dye. I know commercially you have certain kids' crackers. They dye them with purple carrot, and that result is fun. There are several varieties of beefsteak tomato that are supposed to have very large yields, not just in the amount of fruit overall, but the size of the individual fruit. For instance, this mortgage lifter tomato, 1 pound each. This German pink at the bottom. It can be 1 to 2 pounds each. You know, something like that, that would be more of a bang for your buck type of deal. I've been playing with the idea of more of a container garden because the garden was mostly my job to look after and harvest and everything. I had trouble keeping up with it, and it being further from the house, it made it harder to keep up with. So I've been thinking about, okay, what could I grow successfully, rather large yields in a container? And there are varieties of tomatoes and peppers and things like that, herbs, of course, you know, that you could grow in containers and have really good results with. So like this orange hat tomato, it says the perfect miniature tomato. This is the perfect indoor or patio tomato, comfortably fitting in a 4 to 6 inch pot. Perfect for sunny windows and with grow lights. So that's what they look like. And with a container garden, I did try this year. It wasn't the greatest in containers. Indoors, I did try my kind of herbal, medicinal little indoor garden. It didn't go so well. I think just inside where I live, it gets kind of humid, and there wasn't great airflow behind on the windowsills behind like these thick blackout curtains that we have. So my plants, like my basil, my oregano, everything that I had growing got a fungus that spread and killed everything. The only thing that didn't die was my green onions. So I will do green onions again next year because they did really well. They didn't ever get to a point where they were thick, but if they had more time, they would have gotten thicker with each cutting. So then there's also just a really fun one for me to try, stevia, just to have as a sweetener option. It is a perennial, but in places that experience frost and snow, it's an annual. So if I had to plant it every year, then that's fine. It would probably do a lot better in the ground. It's fun to think about. Just to try out. I mean, I've never actually eaten stevia, unless it's already in something. There's just so many things that I would grow, and I don't have the space and the time for, so I have to pick and choose. At least this having been my third garden that I've helped with since we moved up here, I'm starting to see what I like, what I don't like, you know, what I could carry on year after year and save seeds from, and what was a good attempt, but it didn't really work and it's not really worth my time next year. Gardens are a lot of work. They're a lot of work. For years, they just weren't on my radar. I mean, I've lived different places where I either had very limited space, what I thought was limited space to work with, or limited time to work with, or at least what I thought was limited time. Again, perspective, you know, when life changes, then you realize, oh, I really did have more time than I thought I did. I've lived in a rental house where the landlord said, sure, go ahead and use the garden, go ahead and use the backyard for a garden, whatever you want. There's already some stuff growing there. Then I've lived in a condo. I've lived in a second-story condo with just a balcony to work with, and we did try to grow a couple things. Didn't know what we were doing, didn't really research much, so they died. And I thought, going from the condo to here, where there's a very big open garden space to work with, I thought, okay, now is my chance. Now I get to really play around with stuff and learn from Craig's dad, who knows more than I do, and learn from my own dad, who I often have gone to for questions or confirmation about, you know, am I doing the right thing or should I do differently? So it's been a process. It's been a lot of work, and especially choosing to take on a rather large project when I have young kids to bring with me, it gets challenging, but I feel like it's just so worth it because you get to look at all the work that you put in and what you get in return. You know, when you have piles of fruit, piles of vegetables, piles of lettuce. You know, just you have piles of stuff to use fresh and then enough to preserve in some way for later when it won't grow anymore. And it's just amazing. It just gives me such a feeling of satisfaction that my hard work can pay off and I can do hard things and I can reap the benefits of that hard work. But not only that, when things go well, I thank God that things went well and that He allowed things to grow well. When things don't go well, when I have ideas that don't turn out, like trying to grow a very rare chili for my father-in-law and it not coming up at all, or trying to grow a special type of tomato for my mother-in-law, trying to do that, and the bush growing and some fruit growing on the bush, but not very much, you know, nothing that got ripe. Those trial and error times make you very humble. And any amount of power that you thought you had, when things go well and you get a ton of cherry tomatoes or chard or butter crunch lettuce, you're very humbled to know that you are still in need of others to provide for you things you can't provide yourself, and you're always in need of God to provide for you things that you can't provide yourself. And all things go through God's hand before they come to us, and we have to meet the challenges. We have to keep ourselves humble and always looking to Him for guidance in these things. And gardening has been one of those things in my life that have really, if these things come in threes, you know, marriage, raising kids, trying to grow your own food to be more self-sufficient, definitely it's, you know, it's in the top handful of things that have tried my patience and refined me to be a better version of myself. And I couldn't be more thankful for that. Life is always a learning process, and definitely the garden has been a big part of that. So I look forward to trying more things from Baker Creek. They're not the cheapest, but that's because they are heirlooms. They are not hybrids. They come from seeds that have been saved from generation to generation, unchanged over time. That's worth paying more to have a more pure product, in my opinion. And then also, you know, it's not like I'll never buy seeds from the stores in town. There's always those. So we'll see. We'll see what we get next year. But these are some of the ideas that I had. I want to see if Caspian is interested at all in having his own little area that's his own personal garden where he can grow, like he can try other things to grow. If he enjoyed the purple dragon carrots this year. I'm curious to know, are you interested in growing your own food in any capacity? What you have tried in the past, what worked, what didn't work, and what you would want to try in the future because of your experiences. Because our experiences shape who we are, really. Everybody's going to have a slightly different answer to this question. So let me know in the comments. I'd love to talk about it with you. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!